right, welcome to the book club. I'm Dylan, here with the man who makes me want to howl at the moon. Keith, what's up, buddy?
You make me want to be the one. Oh, sorry, that's Usher.
Great song. Well, here at the Buddy Book Club, we're breaking down some box office bangers, and this week we'll be discussing 2004's Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban film. If you'd like to recommend a book or movie for us to read or watch, visit our website, buddybookclub.com, slide into our DMs on Twitter, Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Please download, give us a review. While you're at it, follow us on social channels, please, and thank you. Keith, first timer for you. I'm excited. Let's jump into it with some stock up, stock down. Keith, what do you have for stock up?
Yeah, stock up. Snape.
Oh.
I think I'm buying his stock. I sold it pretty heavily about the book, but is he even that bad in the movies?
No.
He's not, right?
He's not in the movie.
The few times that we see him, it seems like all he's doing is either saving Harry and, Ron and Hermione, and he's being, quite frankly, just like a stern teacher. He's not really playing favorites. He's not being like super Slytherin-esque only. Mm-hmm. Malfoy talks back to him. He's like, "Shut up, Malfoy," at one point. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, he never says that in the book. Like, that's so out of character. The one picture that really comes to mind is him holding Harry, Ron, and Hermione behind him as he like defends them from the werewolf.
From the werewolf,
like,
yeah.
That is not the picture we get in the book, which I think the turn is not going to obviously be as good now in the movies, but at the same time, I feel like it's a little just more realistic. Like, the dude's a stern, kind of secretly holding a grudge. The overall, like, this is the worst character of all time take that I had in book 3 is not the same in the movie.
Yeah, he's a dick, but he's not, I'm going to let 3 students die. I'm not just going to bully Neville into the ground.
Yeah, right.
I guess there was a lot of potions class scenes that made it to the cutting room floor, unfortunately. It's interesting because this movie runs, I think it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, something along those lines. So it's already a pretty lengthy movie. And throughout this, I may or may have some criticisms, but it's tough because this book is just crammed with things happening, and it's hard to translate that into film without some important side stories. You want to give the main plot line a lot of space to grow, but you don't want to sacrifice too much of this subplots, and you also want character development. So it's tough. My first stock up is puberty. So,
Nice.
Getting moody, looks changing, and emotional changes can normally be pretty tough, but not with this film. And you might have thought I was going with puberty as in the fact that this film is 2 years later than the other ones and the kids all look older. But no, I'm talking about the film itself. The film series hits puberty with this one. It's so dark and rainy, especially at the beginning, which I loved. It opens up just already fairly just like grim in general, and no pun intended. But I'm thinking about with Harry and the night bus, and then once they're on the train, it's not like, oh, this is a fun, whimsical, him and Ron in a car flying and it's a beautiful day out. It's like, no, it's dark and rainy and there's Dementors. So it takes a real serious tone. The music additionally turns as well. I'm not sure what the deal is with the chorus song when they get to Hogwarts. You know what I'm talking about?
You're the music guy here, so I know you keep on telling me the music gets darker and darker, but
the opening does. That was in reference to the opening.
Yeah.
The opening gets like a little less whimsical and more spooky as it goes on. But when everyone gets to Hogwarts, they had like a minute and a half of those kids holding those giant toads that were singing the chorus song, like Double Trouble.
What was that?
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but the vibe of that music, like, ba-ba-da, it was... I just did a terrible rendition of it because that's not what it was at all. But that fit the vibe as to like how this movie is going to go. It was very like somber, but also upbeat. I don't know. It was crazy, but I liked it. And I guess the lyrics were taken directly from Macbeth, Shakespeare's Macbeth, from what I read.
That checks out to me. I've got some comments on the movie that I don't think you're going to like.
Okay, that's fine. What else do you have for stock up?
Stock up, curls for the girls, tries for the guys. The Whopping Willows tree scene, that was a bit chaotic.
Oh, with Harry and Hermione?
Yeah. We don't get Crookshanks touching the
knot.
Yeah, but we did get Hermione just getting absolutely yoked. I don't know if you caught this, but Hermione gets picked up by the Whopping Willow and is getting thrown around at like 40 miles per hour, maybe 150 if we're talking the firebolt speeds here. Mid getting completely thrown, she puts her hand out and catches Harry one-armed while he's standing on the ground, just picks him up, bicep curls the shit out of him.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit. While she's holding on to him, bicep curling him, she then rips the try workout out and throws him a fucking two-seam fastball into the little hole perfectly. What I think is what probably got left on the cutting room floor here is that she was using the time turner to go back and just hit the gym so heavily. She's absolutely yoked out of her mind right now. They're like, where have you been, Hermione? And she just comes and she's like dripping sweat, drinking protein shakes. I wonder what she's been doing. She's not been hitting the book. She's been in the weights, kid.
Yeah, I love that. And I definitely noticed it. In my outline, I had like pick your character or whatnot to see if there was someone different from the movie that you like from the book. Anywho, mine basically was it can't be Crookshanks because all of Crookshanks' scenes were cut. I don't know who his agent is, but whoever it was not good. Not only do they move his friendship was serious, but him letting Harry and Hermione into the Whomping Willow, like you referenced, is changed. And I know that in some of these movies they try to work in some action sequence into things that are not actiony, like we talked about and I referenced with Harry and Ron driving the car in Chamber of Secrets. Like there's a thing where Harry falls out. I thought that was fine. This was a bit much. It was like, what are we talking about? Whomping Willows flying around, hitting them in the chest. I was like, oh, that's a heart stopper. Like, no way anyone's getting up from that. Couldn't agree with you more, but what I did also find funny is on IMDb, they have these, like at the bottom, there's like continuity errors and goofs and things that just don't make sense or whatever the case is. And sometimes they're fun to read through. And one of the ones was about this. It was legitimately like, no way Hermione could have picked up Harry. He would have, like, she would have had to weigh this much. He would have had to weigh this much. I was like, wow, this.
I thought you were going to be like, it turns out Hermione can squat 750 pounds, rep 150 pound dumbbells, just her stats on weightlifting.
Yeah. I thought that one was funny on IMDb because it's like, who goes to IMDb to say that? Where there's actual things that people said that's like, oh, that's an interesting point. Like when Snape gets thrown into the bed falls on him, but the next scene he's just laying on the bed and it's intact. It's like, oh, that's an interesting continuity error, but this thing doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm not a big fan of that scene whatsoever. Also, she slides in like right after him. So did she just go full 360 around the willow and was able to slide in? It was no one's that athletic. Tyreek Hill ain't doing that.
I don't know why she's not on the Quidditch team if she's doing that easy peasy.
Yeah, for sure. It also is one of those things where it adds time to the movie that I feel like other things could have been shown, where it's also pretty cool that Crookshanks knows this situation and like just walks up, hits the knot, and the tree goes limp and you can get in. Because even though they don't explain the backstory with Lupin and the Shrieking Shack, it's one of those things that someone will go, wait, how does that work? And if they then ended up reading the book, they would say, oh, that's so cool. Now I see how that whole thing ties together, where this instead is just like a crappy Disneyland ride.
Let me ask you this, D-Man. Who has more screen time, Mr. Bigglesworth or Crookshanks?
Oh, Mr. Bigglesworth for sure. Yeah.
He's like a main character compared to Crookshanks, even though Crookshanks should be a main character.
Yeah, I think Crookshanks has like 3 scenes that he's in. I don't know. Maybe it was an ornery cat and they couldn't figure it out. My next stock up is just nature. I mean, nature stock is already at $1 billion, but in today's world where we're all inside, we need a little bit more nature. And they say that it took millions of years for the land to form as we know it, but it only took us one summer away from Hogwarts for Hagrid's hut to go from sitting on flat ground to being on the side of a hill. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, the whole geography and everything, topography, is that the word?
Sure.
It was much different. I feel like, which I didn't mind actually. I thought it was fine.
And that's why it's a stock up for me. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was really well done that there was just like more wide shots of Hogwarts itself, and even the Whomping Willow, when they showed it early on, it was like at the bottom of the hill and Hogwarts is up on this cliff, and then Hagrid's hut, they're going down to it, but as they're going down to it, in the background is just this beautiful mountain range. Also, over the summer, I guess Hagrid put an addition on his hut because now the hut has a separate bedroom attachment. I don't know if you noticed that either, but it's different than the first 2. But I thought it made it look more like what I expected it would look, I guess, or it made it look more fun and magical. And supposedly this is the first film in the series to extensively use real life locations. In the first two, they just filmed it in studios pretty much. And this one, the director was like Alfonso Cuarón. He was like, we're going outside for this. And so a ton of Scotland stuff. You know, we got Harry's ride on Buckbeak, which was super cool around the lake and whatnot. Even Hogsmeade, the houses in the winter when they were out there, I thought it looked really, really cool. And also, they expanded on the scale model of Hogwarts. So the Hogwarts exterior, they said, was expanded by like 40%, which included that courtyard, which like a ton of scenes were filmed in. I wasn't a big fan of the courtyard. It seemed just like a straight up steal from Rivendell in the Lord of the Rings movies. But other than that, you know, the clock tower, a bunch of stuff they added, it just looked more magical. And I appreciate that because it should be, right? This is Hogwarts we're talking about. When you look at it, you should go, oh my God. And the first ones gave you a little bit, but why not just expand on it? So overall, I loved it. The grounds felt immense. A lot of wide shots, like I said. So I was a big fan.
Agreed with that. Anytime you can make the world a little bigger, more magical, I'm here for it.
Did you have any other stock ups?
Yeah, last one, just keeping in tune with that, romantic scenes in scenery. What do you think of the romantic scenes in this?
Like Ron and Hermione hugging and stuff like that?
Oh, no. I was talking about Lupin and Harry. You didn't see the romantic scenes they had throughout the
movie? That was
movie.
true. They were walking around, birds chirping.
I mean, first we get the meet cute, which is important for... I've talked about meet cutes and how important that is for rom-coms here, but Lupin's on the train, and then the Dementors come and he saves him and then gives Harry a chocolate, and you're like, wow, that's a nice little connection there.
Yeah.
Then they're off in the forest, and they're chatting one-on-one, and then they're going on like that long bridge there and looking over that beautiful landscape and that, you know, that nice second date. Then they're back at Lupin's place in this room and it's like candles lit everywhere and it's like a gold lighting, which is just a weird scene. Every scene he was in with Lupin was just like, why is this scenery necessary for any of this? I didn't hate it though, so it was it's a stock up for me.
A little Engorgio for me, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, there was a lot of walking and talking with Lupin, which I enjoyed. I like the heart-to-hearts. Did feel that they were platonic but emotional and relationship-y. I dug it. Speaking about relationships, my next stock down is Forgive and Forget stock down. Or excuse me, stock up. Oh, my apologies. Okay, stock up for Forgive and Forget because Ron and Hermione's relationship is totally fine after Crookshanks kills Scabbers. He's like, oh, Crookshanks killed Scabbers. She's like, nah, no, he didn't. And then after that, they're hugging it out. They're best friends. He's giving her props when she gives Malfoy the right cross. They kind of just threw out the entire drama between Ron and Hermione that is persistent throughout the entire book, and Harry as well. Like Harry's with Ron for most of it, but they just threw out that whole idea that there's drama between the three of them due to the Crookshanks Scabbers situation.
I feel there's other scenes that they could have cut, and I'd rather them do more character building, more lore. Those are two things that I wish there was just more of in this. Like the bus scene, that scene was awful to me. I think that was like, I didn't like it at all. It didn't make any sense.
The night bus scene?
Motion sickness inducing, the weird pirate head talking, the like zoom in on the guy's acne and all that. I'm like, why is any of this necessary? That seemed like the takeaway was like, oh, this guy has acne. Let's zoom in on... I'm like, no, that's to show that he's super young. That's the only reason they mentioned it in the book, as far as I know. It wasn't like, this guy's ugly.
Yeah,
but they were just like zooming in on weird shit. And I was like, what's going on here? And I was motion sickness that whole bus time.
I thought the night bus scene went on for way too long.
Cut that whole thing.
I like the fun stuff, you know, them sliding between the two buses, like the magical stuff. But... It went up for too long considering that there's so much stuff left on the cutting room floor. It's like, okay, we saw this cool bus that comes and gets you. Obviously, you need a way for Harry to get to the Leaky Cauldron because that's what happens in the book, and you know he has to get there. So have the night bus come, pick it up, show it, squeeze through some stuff, have a quick thing about who's Sirius Black. Oh, he's this guy that's on the loose. Oh, okay, cool, done. Psh, we're there. It went on a little too long for me. Quick last one, stock up. Early 2000s fashion. wouldn't think this would be a stock up for a Harry Potter movie, but did they just forget that they're in the Wizarding World and they wear robes?
Big hate for me.
Oh, okay.
I need to be in this world. What are we doing here? This is why I'm very out on this director.
Oh.
Apparently I read the note. It was like, yeah, he just wanted to like the actors to like dress as they think they should dress. And I'm like, no. This is a piece of literature that's set in stone, that is made. You do not get to decide, you know what, they're just not going to wear the attire of the actual world they're supposed to be in. It'd just be like being in Star Wars and the guy just throws jeans on and being like, well, I felt like Harrison Ford like just likes wearing jeans, so let's make him like, Han Solo have jeans now. It's like, no, that doesn't make any sense.
Late 70s Harrison Ford, nice ass in jeans. I'm just saying. I agree with you, but I think the note is misread by you to some degree.
Go on.
And I agree with this part. So when it comes to the robes, he was like, hey, I think the actors should wear the robes as they think their characters would. So, or as teenagers would, really.
Yeah,
because they're all teenagers. 100%. So it's like, a little looser tie, someone doing a little something with the robe. That makes total sense. Because if you go to a school that has like school uniforms, people kind of do that same thing, right? Or at least that's my understanding from watching School Ties and other movies like that. So I think that actually makes a ton of sense. Like, hey, let's not get so stuffy and tight when it comes to the students' robes, because they're kids. They're all going to do stuff. They're in boarding school, basically. But then it was also like, oh, when they're out of classes, they should wear what they would wear normally. That part I didn't really understand, because they're still in the Wizarding World. These people aren't muggles. Like, when you see other people in the Wizarding World, they're not wearing Mickey Mouse t-shirts and Adidas shoes and stuff like that.
I mean, we get that in the next book here too, when they go to the World Cup and they like, no one knows how to dress. Mm-hmm. So like the fact that it just doesn't make any sense that they're now wearing normal clothing.
Yeah, the final scenes when they're all in just like normal street garb, I was like, wait, what? So yeah, was not a big fan of that. Let's get to Stock Down. What do you got for Stock Down?
Stock Down motifs and other film school jargon. If it wasn't already apparent, I have no business being a movie critic. Since we're here, I'm going to get into it. I was watching a refresher of the movie because I watched it like a week and a half ago now, and I'm so far into Goblet right now. I'm literally in that world. Like, I can't imagine what happened in this movie. So I was like, shit, what did I watch? Uh-huh. So I watched some guy's film breakdown of like how beautifully filmed and the motifs of this movie. And I just remember being like, who gives a shit? Put the stuff in that needs to be in there. It shows like how much like movement and stuff was going on in scenes that, in my opinion, took away from those scenes.
Like in the background, do you mean?
Stuff going on where he's like, and then he zoomed into his face and did like stuff that's like great art house filming, which this content is so good. You don't need to overproduce it or overdo things. The perfect example of this is the Shrieking Shack scene, where that should be the big reveal. That should be the most drama-filled turn. That should be, any movie you think of when you finally find out, like the big twist.
Shit, yeah.
And you're just like, all you're thinking about is, oh my God. The camera in that scene they're just jumping around so much everywhere. There's action here, they're going there. I like couldn't even understand what was going on. It didn't make any sense to me. It felt like almost like a play or a musical. You know how like people are always moving around, and because there's like not a lot to do in those, so you kind of have to create that action. Where that scene, this should have been just zoomed in on Harry, zoomed in on Sirius, and then like talking back and forth. It should not have been any sort of, and then the rat jumped off, and then let's get the wands out and let's kill him, and let's do it, and it's just like up and down and like this whole musical.
Camera chase the rat through the hole, and
like so it just completely fizzled the whole thing for me. I was upset about that.
I agree with you to some extent. I mean, Alfonso Cuarón is a phenomenal director, from my understanding. I mean, he did Roma, won an Oscar with that. Have you seen Children of Men?
Yeah.
Did you like Children of Men?
That was good.
Yeah. I mean, I just like dystopian stuff in general.
Me too.
So that claps for me. Gravity, whatever.
But I've heard people say that Children of Men is like one of the best filmed movies of all time.
Yeah. Like there's a YouTube video of why Children of Men is like the best directed movie. And I'm too dumb to know. So, but watching stuff like that, I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So, when I see stuff that's associated with this movie and they show those things, some of it I go, oh, that's really thoughtful and makes a lot of sense. And then other times I'm like, just relax. Like, you don't need to go so far. And I think the Shrieking Shack is a great example because they did something really cool with that Shrieking Shack set in that they like built this house that's like on hydraulics. So the house is actually like moving, which, you know, like waving with the wind. Like they wanted to make like it would look like it was waving with the wind. It was so unsturdy, which I love because you see that going on in the background. But it's hard to even see that happening because it's just the camera's just jumping around all over the place. And I agree with you. A big reveal thing like that, just put the camera down and let the actors go to work because the content that they have is good enough to hold any scene.
For sure.
My first talk down is School. Who needs it? There were no classroom scenes in this movie. I guess we have the Boggart scene, obviously, which we need. We have a Trelawney lesson with the Grimm, which we need. And I guess you can include Care of Magical Creatures scene when, Malfoy gets bit. I just thought in general, they're at school and there's no school scenes. There's so many other scenes in classrooms that are important to the story in the book, and unfortunately those got cut. I'm not super upset about it because I understand, like I said, at the top, that things need to get cut, and having like 10 potions lessons where Snape is just belittling Neville, like probably unnecessary, but one or two can't hurt.
I think that goes back to the scenery. Kind of that seemed to be the focus, the outdoors, the outside of the castle, whereas I think a lot of these conversations could have been just in the classroom, walking by a classroom, like, I thought the cool parts were when they're walking up and down stairs and they're moving and there's portraits. Like, that is cool to me rather than, oh, that's a cool forest in Scotland. Like, but we can see that in the real world. So it's not really anything too crazy.
I think getting a mix of both is important. And I think having the juxtaposition between these like beautiful outside shots and then Snape's dungeon where Neville's getting berated is like a wonderful play off of each other. So, I wanted a little more mixture between the two, and I just wanted more Snape, honestly, because it's just not the Snape from the book in this one, like you said. So what else did you ever stock down?
I already referenced it, lore. I feel like it missed out on a lot of stuff that I think you could have just handled in a flashback. After the reveal happened, they do a quick flashback with the 4 best friends talking about life at Hogwarts back in the day. That you can then cover all the things that they missed: the Shrieking Shack, the map history, Pettigrew's backstory, all that stuff of like that's key to, I think, future books and this book to solidify. Let's look at all this like background with these 4 guys that were really good friends, and we had talked about it on the group chat. I would love to see a TV show of them 4. How did it get to that point where we're all at Hogwarts best friends, and then one of the friends turns the other one in and gets them killed? That'd be a really interesting thing. We don't get any of that. We don't even know any of that, right? If you didn't read the books, you wouldn't be tuned in. Or maybe I missed it in the movie, but so I would just love more lore, and maybe the future movies will have that.
It made my hates list, honestly, this stuff. And this is actual, all this other stuff I'm talking about the movie. I love this movie. I honestly do. I think it's a great movie. All the other stuff that I said bothers me. It really doesn't. But this stuff actually fucking bothers me. No connection between James Potter's gang and the Marauders map. What? It's their Marauders map. It says, Mooney, Padfoot, Prongs, and Wormtail, but they don't explain that those people are these people. Like, they're standing right there. Never explained. Nothing really on Animagi. There's, like, Snape has one quick reference to it, I think, but not that Harry Potter's dad, James Potter, was a stag, which is the Patronus that he sees across the lake. Excuse me? No explanation of the Fidelius charm, and thus, because of that, no explanation on how Sirius betrayed the Potters. It's just like, oh, you were his friend and you betrayed them. How? How did he betray them?
Right, yeah.
It's like, what? And I agree that a flashback would be an interesting way of doing it, just having with the Fidelity Charm, something along those lines to just explain it, or even it feels like it would have been 2 seconds for Lupin at the end, because Lupin is like mischief managed and closes it, so he obviously knows something about it, and I guess you're leaving that open to the viewer to ponder, but it's still a movie for kids. So,
and we have Gary Oldman too.
Yeah,
he's a terrific actor. You zoom in on his face, you can see it in his eyes how upset and sad he is as he tells the story of what happened
Perfect.
That would be amazing. You flash back as he's narrating it.
Yeah, because in that Shrieking Shack scene, he can just explain what happened with the Fidelius charm. And like you said, he's a phenomenal actor. David Thewlis, who's Lupin, is also a phenomenal actor. Shout out to Dragonheart, if anyone's seen it. Great movie. And he, at the end, could, when he's doing the mischief managed, just say, Harry could be like, whoa, how'd you know how to do that? And he'd be like, well, this is actually mine. In that scene, too, could also then he'd be like, it's your father, me, and whatever. And he would say that his father, we were animagi, and his dad was a stag. And then we'd all go like, oh, the lake, his Patronus, Harry's Patronus is a stag. Now it makes sense. So I was pretty upset with that. Like that stuff, it seems like that has to be in there. And the fact that it was left out for an extra long night bus scene, don't love it. Don't love it at all. My next and last stock down is Quidditch. So what also made the cutting room floor, and I'm not super upset about this if they had thrown in the other stuff that we just talked about, is we get no Quidditch in this movie, which is funny because we talked about in the pod how there's so much Quidditch in the book. Yeah. We get 3 Quidditch matches in the book and a super long
the opposite
Quidditch final. Yeah. You know, specifically, they cut the most importantly, like the Quidditch Cup win for Gryffindor, which is like the first time they've done it in like super long time. I think at least you throw in at the end something along the lines that they won the Quidditch Cup. I don't know. But we do get what in the one Quidditch scene we do get. It's the one, obviously, when Harry falls off his broom because of the Dementors.
That was a good scene, though. You
like that?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. It's kind of weird that it went so high in the air, but I was like, that's kind of a cool element to add in. I didn't hate it.
Yeah, it was good and dark. I like that stuff. The things I didn't like was 2 kids getting struck by lightning, and they just fell off their brooms. So it's like, whoa, there's now 2 other dead bodies on the ground that Harry's still flying around. Or what?
Yeah.
And then I did appreciate that someone gave Harry some rec specs, because who doesn't love a good pair of rec specs? Because it was big in the book that they couldn't see through his glasses, and in this one, everyone just got rec specs on. So I appreciate it.
That's just what Daniel Radcliffe wanted, and he's like, "Yeah, keep them. Don't worry about it."
Did you have a favorite moment from the movie that you liked?
I guess this is more of just loves in general. I thought the opening scene was great. I was like, this movie is going to be fucking awesome. That opening Aunt Petunia scene, great actress, like him getting angry.
You mean the Marge scene?
Marge, sorry.
Played by the same woman that plays Miss Trunchbull from Matilda.
Oh, good cat. Oh, she nailed it.
Yeah.
And like him getting angry, I was like, oh, this makes perfect sense. So I was strapped in once that happened. I was like, this is off to the right start. I thought Peter Pettigrew casting was perfect. He looks exactly like a rat.
Yeah, whatever they did for the facials and stuff like that was so good.
Yeah.
What did you think about the werewolf?
I was okay with it. I mean, I don't really know what a werewolf's supposed to look like other than that one movie there with werewolves versus...
Oh, you love that Underground or whatever that one's called?
Underworld, yeah.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Kate Beckinsale, your girl. Yeah, I don't think there's like a defined idea of what a werewolf should look like. I mean, maybe a baseline, American Werewolf in London or something along those lines. And there's obviously been werewolves in lots of movies. But I thought this one was just so unique and really frightening. It's a frightening creature. This like the super long arms and kind of no fur on it. It had like human-esque qualities too. I just liked it. I was a big fan of it. So
I like
that scene when the werewolves come out was up there for me. A couple studio notes. It's a 90/86 on Rotten Tomatoes, which is interesting that the critics like it slightly more than the fans do, because a lot of people feel like this is the best movie. It grossed $800 million worldwide, and a couple casting notes. Alfonso Cuarón, as we've talked about, Children of Men, Gravity, Roma. Y Tu Mama Tambien was supposed to be really good. Obviously, I didn't see it. Talk about art house. I think that's your art house stuff. I love me some Christopher Columbus and Chris Columbus, the director, not the genocide guy. But he's best, I feel like, with kids movies, and this movie did take a different turn. And I think it was up to Chris Columbus whether he wanted to direct it or not, and he chose not to because he wanted to spend more time with his family. He stayed on it in a producer capacity, but they kind of went around to a bunch of different directors, and I think Guillermo del Toro was supposed to, but they didn't like his ideas that he was kind of going to go super, super far off the edge, and he kind of convinced Alfonso Cuarón to take it on. So whether you like it or not, it's definitely a different take. I do want to ask you for the casting notes what you thought of our new Dumbledore.
Yeah, that was kind of in my hates.
Oh, okay. So Richard Harris died shortly after the second film was released. The producers offered the role to Christopher Lee and Ian McKellen. Lee, which we obviously know from Lord of the Rings, Christopher Lee being Saruman and Ian McKellen being Gandalf, and that's why McKellen didn't take it, because he thought it was too similar to Gandalf, while Christopher Lee had some scheduling conflicts.
I mean, I think the original cast was absolutely perfect. He's supposed to be, just based off of, I feel like how I read him is, he's supposed to be kind of like silly but brilliant, encourages independence, but also he's like nurturing. He's supposed to be kind of like a comic relief, but also the most dangerous person in the room. So he's supposed to be like a mix between all those things. But he's not supposed to be just like this stern person that's like serious. Serious is the last word I would use as him, right? He can get serious, but he is not. His overall disposition is almost aloof at times, right?
Yeah.
When he was talking every time, it just seemed like he was Professor McGonagall. Like we already have that. Like you know. So I didn't get it, but I mean he wasn't like a huge part of the film, obviously, but he just didn't seem very silly or happy or any of those things. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I'm a huge Richard Harris guy. He's phenomenal in Gladiator as well, even though he's very short lived in Gladiator. I'm not a huge Michael Gambon fan in general, so I don't love his Dumbledore. I think his Dumbledore has good moments, and then it has some really bad moments. I think Richard Harris was almost this like wise old man who almost seemed frail at times, but which I didn't love. While Michael Gambon seems like a little more feisty, which I like about him. But I thought in the first book when he gets the earwax, alas, earwax, he's like quirky and funny in that way, and that Michael Gambon I don't think really has. And I think there's other times where he gets like a little too serious, where it's like, wait, Dumbledore wouldn't be like that. Dumbledore's kind of like all-knowing.
For all 3 or 4 years, he does the Welcome to Hogwarts. It's just basically him doing a stand-up routine for the first 10 minutes, and he's like, oh yeah, go here, you'll die. Ha ha ha. This guy's kind of a little bit out there, but I love that. That's what I like about him.
Exactly.
And this thing, he was like actually serious giving a speech. Huh? What's happening here?
Well, wait until
I know next one is. I've seen obviously that clip. So I mean, I've also I think negatively impacted by that clip. One clip I've seen, and I'm like,
and I think we all probably are. He's not terrible by any means. I just a bigger Richard Harris fan. Simple as that. Do you think Gary Oldman, David Thewlis, Lupin? We also get Emma Thompson as Trelawney. Some big names. How'd you feel about those characters? Do you think they were well cast?
Yeah, I thought they were all solid. I think Gary Oldman, I think they could have done more with him. I already mentioned it. Yeah. I'm assuming in future films he's let him cook a little bit more.
Yeah, he's not really. I mean, he's obviously not in Goblet because he's not really in Goblet outside of like them talking to him in the fire, as far as I can remember. And he's a little bit in the other ones, but this is definitely his like big intro, and you feel like outside of the prison tats he's got on, he didn't really do a lot. Not sure where he got those prison tats. You think the Dementors are good with the ink? Because I imagine they're not really good with the needle, because based on the state of their robes, I don't know, maybe he got them beforehand. And once again,
their Sirius Black's body and hands are made from Russian prison gangs, the tattoos on them.
Oh,
so
they are prison
the person as a man to be feared and respected.
What did you love about Prisoner of Azkaban, the film?
I already burned a few of mine, but I didn't mention also that Harry wearing number 7 at Quidditch. I loved it. I don't know why there's no mentions, I don't think, reference of numbers, like them wearing uniform numbers, but I appreciate it. 7's my favorite number. 7 is how many books there are. So I assume there's some symbolism. I was hoping to find some fun facts on that, but it doesn't seem like anyone's references it at all. I don't know if I'm making it up.
I thought it was like because Sirius is a dog and werewolves are dogs, and Michael Vick murdered a bunch of dogs. That's Michael Vick wore number 7. I just thought it was that long.
Stay in. There's the clip for the kids.
My love is, I feel like there's more in this movie. There's more everyday wizarding stuff going on in the background, which I love. We have the cleaning lady at the Leaky Cauldron. Because I'm always just wondering, like, what's going on in this world? How do these people live? At the Leaky Cauldron, they got a cleaning lady who's going around cleaning rooms. It's like, oh, okay, that checks out. And even the boys, which I actually thought was kind of a dumb scene, but I like the idea behind it, of the boys in their dorm room on the first night back, like eating those animal candies and doing the animal sounds. I personally thought that the animal thing was kind of stupid, but the idea of just, they're not always in school. They're not always doing that. They're spending tons of time just chilling in their dorm rooms, you know, shooting the shit with each other, having fun. They're 14-year-old kids. So seeing that kind of stuff, I loved it. And even like Lupin packing at the end. It's like, how does a wizard pack up all of his stuff? And you just see Lupin, you know, magically putting everything in its place, just normal everyday stuff. Although that specifically, I feel like was stolen directly from Mary Poppins, but that's just me. So, did you have any other loves?
Dementors. I thought they were legit. Yeah. I didn't imagine them floating like that. That was cool. Yeah, I thought they were just a really well done imagination of it, and you know, definitely that's how I imagine them moving forward, which is cool.
Yeah, I once again stolen from Lord of the Rings, but
I guess that's true. Yeah.
But they were really, really good. Everything about them fit with the description in the book and were scary. They were perfectly scary.
Yeah, for sure.
And you can, if someone's interested, they can look into like how they did the Dementors and stuff, but it seems like it was pretty cool. They did a lot of like underwater. They wanted to do them underwater filming, so they get like the things flailing like they should. Didn't work out, but they were kind of able to use that footage for the special effects people to do it. So yeah, I thought they were really great. My last love is Harry seeing Pettigrew on the map, on the Marauders map. It was a pretty good fix to the map situation in the book. Mm-hmm. Yes, what we talked about last time with Fred and George would have seen, if they looked at Ron at any time during their ownership of the map, they would have seen Pettigrew with Ron at night. Outside of that, I thought this was a good fix to the situation, because it's like, okay, Harry sees Pettigrew on the map, and that leads him to running into Snape. The map gets taken. So, and then Lupin gets it, and then Lupin sees it on the map. It made a lot more sense to me than like Harry using this map the whole time and like never seeing Pettigrew, even though he's there. So the few times that this kind of goes off from the book, it does it in the right way. What about hates?
There was really no character turmoil to make Ron and Hermione's characters more important. I feel like they should be involved more and have more storylines going with them, but it didn't seem like that was necessarily the case here.
Agree with you on that. For me, I didn't really understand the Boggart scene when Harry steps up to the Boggart, because, and Lupin even says in the movie, oh, I didn't want you to step up to the Boggart because I thought it'd be Voldemort and that would freak people out. But he does step up and it becomes a Dementor, and then Lupin stands in. So it's like, what? You know it wasn't Voldemort. You know it was a Dementor. So, huh? It didn't really make a ton of sense. Point. The twins somehow knowing about Harry and his invisibility cloak, I hate that just for the whole story in general. Harry's invisibility cloak is pretty secret to just him, Ron, Hermione, and Dumbledore. So didn't love that. Like they see some footprints and they're like, oh, it's Harry. It's like, wait, what? How? And two more quick ones. One, Firebolt at the end as opposed to the middle. I know they cut all the Quidditch scenes, but who sent Harry the Firebolt is like a big question that's going on throughout the book. And then at the end, he gets it and then flies off into the sunset, and it's like freeze frame on his face. Not a big fan.
I feel like all the endings of these have been, it's like you write that perfect essay in high school and then you just end it with like, and so that's about that. And you're just like, period. And you're like, fuck it, I'm turning this in. Everything else is good enough.
Yeah, it's like, how do we end this book or this movie? Just fly Harry off on his firebolt and then freeze frame as his face is screaming from happiness.
Yeah. I feel like we should get like a looming, like next time, like Voldemort's still out there.
Yeah, why don't we get a picture of like Pettigrew going down a trail that's in Albania or something like that? It's like, whoa, what?
He's like, I told you I'd come back to you, Master, and you just see like an ominous presence, like, and he's like, oh no, and that's it, cuts.
Yeah,
then the movie ends.
It's like, Master, I'm returned.
We should be directors. I mean, we should really write
because
this stuff.
Even they have the Trelawney says that like, oh, the servant will return to their master or whatever by the end of the night, and then at the end it can just be like, you know, Pettigrew in this creepy ass wood being like, Master, I've returned to you. It's like, you know, boom, end credits. Not like, da, 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 I'm Harry Potter, I'm flying on a boom. Whatever.
The slow clap was fine.
Slow clap. In general, the story just seemed to move super fast, and I get it. It's a dense book with like lots going on. It just kind of sped from scene to scene to scene to scene to scene, and everything was going so fast. That's just more of a personal thing for me. I didn't really like necessarily hate it.
Well, the other scene that they said when I was watching that like filmmaking great thing was when, you know how Mr. Weasley pulls Harry aside, and is like starts talking to him, and he just keeps moving.
Oh yeah,
and then it goes to the next scene, and they're like, "What an amazing piece of filming!" Because they show all these things you need to see, and I was like, that was the most like I just kept on thinking how stupid that was. When I was watching.
Mean when Mr. Weasley's just like dragging him from one pillar to another pillar to a door?
Yeah, and it was so obvious they were like showing this poster to show this poster. Like, how about be a little bit more subtle? I thought filmmaking was all about being subtle, not being like, see this poster?
It's funny you say that because I noticed it too. It's like, what was wrong with having the conversation there? Or like, if you wanted to have it somewhere else, like, why didn't you go there the first time?
I have a listener email.
Sure. What do we got?
Billy from Michigan.
You've got mail.
2-part question. Based on the movie, is magic that can be done on your cell phone app allowed? Harry's under his covers using Lumos?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And second question, what is more scary to you? The Bogart turns into a snake or when it turns into a clown?
Yeah.
So that's Billy from Michigan. Yeah, thank you for the questions.
These are great questions. I actually had in my lingering questions, Billy and I share a brain. So Harry can scream Lumos Maxima over and over with no repercussions, but when he just accidentally inflates someone, it's like he's going to get expelled.
Yeah. Also, that spell sucked. Why would you even want that spell? It would just like slightly. First of all, it basically was a flare. It would like light up the whole house, and then it would go for 3 seconds. Have you ever heard a flashlight? That like it's so much more effective.
The Muggles do have flashlights or torches. You know, you can just use one. You don't have to use a wand, and you won't get expelled. And the best part is 2 seconds after the Marge thing, which is 2 seconds after this Lumos Maxima thing. He's like, oh, using magic outside of school could get you expelled. And I'm like, you just use lots of magic. You said spells like over and over and over again. So yeah, that was hilarious. And I could not agree with this person more. I'm not even like afraid of clowns, but that clown in particular was not funny. It was frightening. And the snake was not.
I think what ended up happening was they were like, this will be the next person's thing that they're scared of. And we'll just keep going through. And then it just was like, and like editors didn't realize that, so they like added a laugh track, but it was supposed to be a scary thing. I think next, like, you know, they're just running through it.
Yeah,
it's like a spider, a snake, a clown. Like that made sense. But then they were just like, oh shit, we forgot to turn the snake into something that's not scary. We'll just add a laugh track. Don't worry about it.
Scary to scary with snake to clown, and everyone started laughing, and like the clown is frightening.
By far scarier.
Yeah. Thanks, Billy. Appreciate that. Lingering questions. Why did they replace Goyle? That was my question. Did you notice that it was Malfoy, Crabbe, and then some other guy for all of those scenes? Like halfway
I read somewhere that he got injured, or like injured his arm, so they had to write someone else in. Yeah. Okay. I didn't notice it though.
Yeah, because I was like, wait, they had Goyle at the beginning. He was there, and then all of a sudden it was just some other guy, like a stand-in. I was like, did they just forget that this was the guy who they like stage it with? You know, that's like just for blocking purposes, but. I'm pretty sure, and I didn't look this up, I'm pretty sure there was a photo of Voldemort next to the fat lady when they first go to Gryffindor Tower. So anyone who's potentially watching it for the first time or whatnot, right when they go up the stairs, there's a portrait right next to the fat lady, and it's Voldemort as we see him in later movies. That is him. So pretty interesting, because I didn't know that they had already come up with a character, but once you see the character in the next movie, it's like, well, that's him right there. Caroline's question, which was a lingering one that I enjoyed, and I don't think we discussed in the last one. How did the twins figure out how to use the map?
I had that same question. It's a good question.
Yeah. They just kept going with random stuff until they figured it out?
They would tap on it and be like, reveal yourself. And it would just kind of give you hints along the way based off of what they're looking for. Hey, we're up to no good. What do you do? Type of thing. You know, or something like that, where it's like, why were you in Filch's office? You know, why are you there? And it's like, well, we stole you. It's like, oh, okay. You know, I think there's some sort of progression because it's magical. I don't know. That's what I felt like.
I can dig it. Yeah, because if it's only for those guys, I didn't know, but I like that idea. I was thinking that they could have just eventually guessed, like, we solemnly swear we're up to no good. I don't know if that would be the exact wording, though, you know, that they would use. So Yeah, I think I like your way better. The map. I mean, the map's pretty sophisticated. It
Because
probably
they responded to Snape in the book.
Yeah, you have greasy hair and a big nose. That was it for lingering questions. We addressed the cutting room floor stuff. Did you have anything else for that?
My last fun fact was
Okay.
because in order to acquaint himself with the three lead actors, director Alfonso Cuarón had each of them write an essay for their characters. First of all, you're coming into the movie. You should be writing an essay on the characters, what you think of, not me. But this is actually shows that they know their characters really well. Emma Watson wrote a 16-page essay, which was what
I thought it was. I heard it was 10 pages, but okay.
Oh, whatever. Daniel Radcliffe wrote a page, and Rupert Grint, who plays Ron, didn't turn it in, which is basically what the characters would do. So they actually did the assignment correctly. So I appreciate it.
I feel like that's not fair enough. Like Rupert Grint was like, that's what Ron would do, but like Ron does his homework. He's not a bad student.
But he would like turn it in late, or maybe copy off of someone. So I think that's fine.
I'd pour a bunch of ink on it and be like, oh, it was there, but then this ink spilled on it. I don't know, man. Movies are weird like that. It's like, I guess you're going to make millions of dollars, so like you can write an essay, but I'd be like, come on, man. It's like the new boss coming in and wanting to shake things up. This guy. And I'd also be pretty pissed at Emma Watson, who spent like all her time making like a 10 or 16 page thing, and he's like, it was just really a test to see if you knew your character. What? This is terrible. So that will do it for Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban movie. What did you think overall of the movie? Like, what would you give it out of the 4 buddy system?
It's hard because obviously books are always better than movies. I'd probably give it a 2 out of 4. I really was not that big of a fan of it. I think if I had to rank the movies, I'd go 1, 2, 3.
Oh, really?
You said it's your favorite, so I'm a little nervous about these next ones. There's too much going on. The first and second one, I think, just captured what I thought in my brain of the book much more than this one did. This one just did too much. I don't mean to be so negative. I get into these things too much, so.
No, that's fair. And I probably would give it like 3 buddies. I didn't say this was my favorite movie. I think it's a really good one. I think a lot of people say it's their favorite movie. It's definitely my favorite book so far. Tough for me to decide. I did like it better than the other ones, but a lot of the aspects of the other ones I liked more. I think just overall it's like pretty close for me, where it's not. 2, I think is the worst in my opinion, just because the CGI stuff I thought with the snake and stuff just wasn't really for me. So it'd be between like 1 and 3. Anywho, we're moving on to Goblet of Fire. I remember getting this book and being like, oh my God, it's so long. I am so excited. Like, when has that ever happened? As a kid, you get a super long book from somebody and you're like, why isn't it longer?
This book's phenomenal. This book is unbelievable. I'm like halfway at it. I'm just like so locked in. It's an emotional roller coaster every time I read it. Like my body and mind change as I'm reading it. Like I get really upset or I'm getting like really happy. I'm like, what's going on here? It's like physically changing me.
Yeah, we listened to a bunch of it on the 14-hour ride back from Michigan, and it made that drive fly by, and 2, I was like, they're not at school yet. It was like 8 hours into this book.
It's so good.
And they're not even at school yet. It was wild to me. So, yeah. Okay. Well, great. I'm excited to talk about it. Hopefully we'll get that next week, and we'll have a special guest for that too, which I'm excited about. So, Keith, thanks for chatting Prisoner of Azkaban, and I'll catch you for Goblet.
Indeed.
All right.
Alrighty.
Bye now.
Bye now.